Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. Thank you very much for hanging out. I appreciate your time. We're going to be quick here because there are a couple of things we want to get to, and then we'll let you go on your way. And we are still a few days away from the draft. Hurricanes pick 30th. Can't even discuss that because, frankly, I only know 2 players in the draft, and you don't come to me for that knowledge anyway. You go elsewhere to actual draft experts. And frankly, picking 30th, the Hurricanes aren't going to get anybody that will make an impact on the NHL roster this year or even next year unless they trade that pick, which I think is possible, albeit this team doesn't really like to trade draft picks. If anything, they might trade out of 30 back into the second round, maybe pick up some other assets. Don't know how they're going to do it, but ultimately, we don't have to discuss the 30th pick in the draft. Free agency begins on July 1st. And if history tells us anything, the Hurricanes aren't going to be major players in free agency. And there are some attractive free agents that do things that Carolina would like. I mean, I don't think it would be the worst thing on this earth if the Hurricanes dipped into free agency. And I don't know, if you could get what the Bruins got out of Tyler Bertuzzi, you might like that, huh? Anyway, I think more than likely the Hurricanes will improve themselves from within and via trade, which, frankly, we're kind of accustomed to. So let's get to a couple of things, and then we will say goodbye. And again, I don't believe we'll be here longer than 15 minutes. Isn't that nice, especially on a weekend, and you're planning for your July 4th holiday. And it's actually kind of a long weekend for a lot of people. It is for me. I'll be off the 3rd and the 4th of the following week. I'm off the entire week this week, but that doesn't mean that we haven't continued to discuss and think and love the Carolina Hurricanes. All right, let's get to it. The captain returneth. Jordan Staal, 4-year contract worth $11.6 million. It is an average annual value of 2.9. That's the cap hit. It's a little bit more on the books in years 1 and 2. Roughly a combined $7 million, maybe a shade more in the first couple of years, and then it drops a little bit, and the base salary is very low in the 4th year, and there's a signing bonus that gets it to around $2 million. And my feeling on this is the contract longer than I expected with Jordan Staal at 34 years old and with all of those miles on his body? Yeah, it's at least a year longer than I expected. But what have I been saying if you have been paying attention? I think for the way the Hurricanes are built today, and they are built to contend for a Stanley Cup today, the last thing they should be concerned about are the last couple of years of a contract. If it makes you better or keeps you better today, you do it. You absolutely do it. So Jordan Staal, frankly, I think worth $3.5 million per over the next 2 years because he's still defensively at an incredibly high level. Scored 17 goals this year. 17. I mean, that's pretty doggone good for Jordan Staal. So I loved everything about this. He'll remain the captain. My guess is for at least 2 more years. As long as he's playing at a high level, I don't see any reason to not have him be the captain. I think he has worn the sea with honor. I think he's obviously still very good, still a very important player. And I know there are a lot of people that want to push him out the door. You people are crazy. You're not pushing Jordan Staal out the door. He's not going to be a 4th-line center. He is a 3rd-line player. He's still your best penalty-killing forward. He is still your best face-off guy. He's a horse. He doesn't play power play time, and I do believe that if the Hurricanes do enough work during the course of the offseason and getting ready for this upcoming year, then Jordan Staal shouldn't have to play more than 16 minutes a game. That should be the goal, to get Jordan around there so he can expend all of his energy killing penalties and being a 3rd-line defensive center. He's not a 4th-line energy guy. He's not a guy you want to play 10, 12 minutes a game, okay? Especially at home, he's going to match up against the other team's top offensive players. So let's not push him off into the old age home just yet. So Jordan is best served being a third center for this team, which means that they have to find a second center if you and I agree that Jesperi Kotkaniemi probably is not it. My feeling. Maybe it's yours. Maybe you differ. My friend Corey Lavalette from The Athletic and the North State Journal is still very much on the Jesperi Kotkaniemi can be a second-line center player. Okay. I think reasonable people can disagree reasonably. But Stahl, again, is the contract maybe 2 years too long? Yes, but they'd also extended it so the cap hit would get lower. They would drop the cap hit, which teams have done in the past for much more lucrative contracts. But the cap hit at under $3 million for Jordan Stahl, oh yeah, for 2 more years, oh yeah, dig it. The other thing, the potential for a return to Carolina for one Anthony DAngelo. I am not hiding my feelings here. I wholly endorse the move. We talked about it. I think even with Corey and Sarah Sivian from Bleacher Report when we did our last Canes Corner podcast live. I'm on board with the return of Tony DAngelo for a lot of reasons. Frankly, again, as I said on Twitter at AGoldFan, I don't see the downside. If he comes back, and this nothing has happened at the time we're recording this. We started at basically 8 o'clock p.m. So nothing has happened. But the Hurricanes would be sending a prospect to Philadelphia based on reports. I think Pierre LeBrun and Elliot Friedman both had it. A prospect to Philadelphia. My guess is not a great one, or at least not one that fits in Carolina's plans. So a prospect to Philadelphia for DAngelo, who's got 1 year left on a $5 million contract, but Philadelphia would likely pay half of that salary. And Tony DAngelo on a $2.5 million cap hit, playing on a third defensive pairing and quarterbacking maybe your top power play unit, but certainly one of the two along with Brent Burns. Sign me up. I mean, what is even the debate? DAngelo had 51 points in 64 games for Carolina 2 years ago. And he was a plus 30. Now, he played with Jacob Slavin basically all year. So remember that year they started with Ethan Bear playing with Slavin. And then Bear wasn't playing well, got sick, got COVID, and his season just went up in flames. But DAngelo stepped in, and I thought Tony played reasonably well, even defensively for Carolina. Certainly, he was not an embarrassment. He's not a great defensive player. Actually, let's be honest. He's not a good defensive player. But he wasn't horrific for Carolina. He didn't finish the season strong, and his playoffs, especially the second round against the Rangers, was terrible. But frankly, Carolina wasn't at the tip top of their game offensively in that series either. But it's really hard to look back on Tony's 1 year here and think anything other than he was a positive for Carolina. Now, he went to Philadelphia, and John Tortorella shows up, and boy, that was never going to work out, and it didn't. Tony got off to a good start and actually didn't have a terrible offensive year. He had 42 points in 70 games or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. He had 19 power play points. By the way, for the Hurricanes in 64 games, he had 20 power play points. So every third game, basically, Tony DAngelo was creating a power play point for Carolina. Again, very good. But his power play work for Philadelphia was also good. His defensive work for Philadelphia was about as good as everybody else's for Philly. That team was awful, and they're breaking it up. And Tortorella and DAngelo were never going to work. Ever, ever, ever. So that's a marriage that had to end. And if the Hurricanes can take advantage of that, Sign us up, people. 1 year playing on a third pair, maybe with Jalen Chatfield. And by the way, Chatfield can easily play as offside. Remember, I shouldn't have to remind everybody, but I will. When Jacob Slavin missed, what was it, 6 games in a row? Jalen Chatfield played the left side with Brent Burns and was awesome. That's what opened up everybody's eyes, mine, the teams, that there might be a top 4 future for Jalen Chatfield. So, look, I'm not saying that's going to happen this year. I hope not. I'll get to a scenario where it does in a second. But Jalen Chatfield playing on his left side with Tony playing on the right, how would that be dramatically worse than when Chatfield and Shane Gostisbehere play together? I fail to see the difference. I love it. I would absolutely love. The only difference is Chatfield playing is offside. But DAngelo is a good skater. DAngelo is feisty and competitive, and sometimes that works against him. But I have seen many times where it has worked for him. Again, nobody is asking him to become Nicklas Lidstrom. Tony just has to be dynamic offensively and help the power play if he gets here. And again, there wouldn't be a lot of cost. $2.5 million cap hit if they pay half the salary, and the prospect cost probably not a lot. I mean, and we could read some of the. Let me just read a couple of people on Twitter. Well, this is from Morally Bankrupt Hurricanes fan. I think he's bad at defense, and he's bad at being a human being. But anything for the fellas, because the fellas is in reference to my tweet that the fellas, meaning the team, would love the return of Tony. Oh, I don't know. There's something about being a good teammate that resonates in a professional locker room. And Tony DAngelo is a good teammate. Jesper Foss, who's one of the best people you'll ever meet in a hockey dressing room, loves Tony. Right? Oh, you're worried about the politics of it? Why? Why? We're not asking Tony to run for office. And by the way, what makes you think that Tony's politics are, because that was a big thing for people, and maybe this is a non-issue, and I'll just say this one line, and I'll move off to the other stuff about Tony. But what makes you think Tony's politics are different than 95% of players in locker rooms? What makes you think? There's no difference. Tony's brash, and Tony has said things in the past in a derogatory way towards teammates, and we get that. And nobody likes that. But again, I don't think it's an isolated incident to Tony DAngelo. And really, all you need to concern yourself with is he going to embarrass the franchise? He didn't in year 1. Is he going to help the team on the ice? He absolutely did in his year with the Hurricanes. And do his teammates like him, respect him, value him? 100%. Look, Tony has said some negative things in his past against my tribe. He ain't the only one. He ain't the only one. And I mean, now he was what, 15 when that happened? 16? Like, I've met Tony. I've spent a fair amount of time with Tony. I talk to Tony on a regular enough basis. I like Tony. I do. I like him. Are we going to sit down and talk about, social social justice? No, we're not. We're not. But I like him, and the team likes him, and that's really all any of you should care about. He has not embarrassed the team, and all he has done really is help the Hurricanes in the 1 year he was here. And if you want to judge him based on a lost year in Philadelphia, fine. You're free to do so, but I think you're wrong for doing that. So I hope they bring him back. The only problem I have with it, and it's not about Tony, the only problem I have with it is that because we know that Jalen Chatfield can play up, I would just say I hope it is not giving them license to feel like they can trade Brett Pesci, and that's all good in the hood. No. I said this on the radio before I left for this kind of extended little break, but that's not, I mean, it's 10 days. Unless you are bringing back a foundation piece, in other words, young player, long-term contract at a position of need, second line center. I'll just throw a name out, even though none of this has happened. Buffalo is interested in Brett Pesci. If you traded Pesci to Buffalo for Dylan Cousins and slotted him as a second center behind Sebastian Aho, I might be okay with that. But I don't think that's happening. And unless that happens, a foundation piece, I just don't see why you would trade him. You're not getting any closer to winning a Stanley Cup without Brett Pesci. They don't have a replacement for Brett Pesci. Jalen Chatfield is not next year a replacement, or this upcoming year, a replacement for Brett Pesci. So don't, unless you are bringing in somebody who can be a dynamic player at a position of need. End of discussion there. So don't do it. Other than that, we'll see what they do. And again, not free agency. Real little bit of speculation, although I haven't seen any speculation about the specifics of it. But Elias Lindholm is kind of hesitating about whether or not he wants to sign a long-term contract with Calgary. Don Waddell, I know you're watching. Go make it happen. Go make it happen, my man. That's the guy. That's the guy. I don't know if Brett Pesci would be part of that trade. He might have to be. I don't know. But, man, go get yourself some Elias Lindholm. Sign him to a long-term contract. The contract's not going to be prohibitive. It's probably going to be around 8. Do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Right? Are we good there? All right. And now I have one more thing. One more thing. So the Board of Governors meeting in New York the other day, the commissioner told the world that we would no longer have Pride nights. Well, I'm sorry. Let me self-edit. That we would no longer be wearing special jerseys. And that extends from the Pride jerseys to the military appreciation jerseys to the Hockey Fights Cancer jerseys. And what the commissioner said was that it had become a distraction. So let me just say this. Gary Bettman, who I think is a very good commissioner, Gary Bettman did the best he could to dress up a turd. Because really what the problem is that we have some players who, under the guise of my religion, will not allow them to wear Pride jerseys. Just in warm-ups. Keep in mind, the Pride jerseys are simply a show of support for a marginalized community, a community that has not felt safe, has not felt welcome, has been shunned and ridiculed and beaten to the point where their suicide rates are higher. All it is you are welcome here. It's not an endorsement of anything. And somehow we've lost sight of that because we have some players, and I'll say it, who just are homophobic and can't stand the thought of having a rainbow in, coloring the numbers on their uniforms when they skate around for 20 minutes in warm-up. I'm sorry if I'm appalled at that, but I am. But let's boil it down to this. You know what that is? Telling a group of people who has felt marginalized everywhere else, it's freaking marketing. That's all it is. It's marketing. We want your money. The military appreciation stuff, that's fine. I got no problem with that. It's honoring the military, man. Do it. We should do it. And the players should wear the military appreciation jerseys in warm-up, because then we sell those and we donate money. And the hockey fights cancer, my gosh, we're not going to wear those pride jerseys. We're not going to wear those hockey fights cancer purple jerseys in warm-up so we can sell those at auction and raise money for charity. We're not going to do that. So we're basically going to say, you know what? We don't want to donate $250,000 to charity every year because, I don't know, a dozen players around the league are too spooked by homosexuality to put a pride jersey on. And shame on all of you people that want to make it about something it's not. It's just a welcome. It's all it is, just a welcome. I thought that was a sad day. I thought that day when the commissioner came out and said that, it was just a sad day. And frankly, I understand. The first page of the playbook, blame the media. Oh, wait a second. Players were criticized? Justifiably. Players were criticized? Shocking. What a shocking thing. Players are criticized. Comes with the territory, man. Comes with the territory. I've already gone longer than I wanted to. I thought that was a bad day for the NHL. Nothing Gary Bettman could do. I've got my thoughts on why it got to that point. No need belaboring the point. That was the decision they made. So basically, around the league, if we say $250,000 times 32, oh, you do the math. I can't do the math. Whatever that is, $8 million. How about that? $8 million to charity, just thrown away. Stupid and selfish and narrow-minded. But y'all got your wish. You guys, for those people who hated it, you don't have to watch the rainbow numbers skate around the ice and warm up as though you really cared anyway. With that said, got that off my chest. We'll come back and we'll do more as the Hurricanes get to the draft and whatever kind of deals they make to reshape the roster. And if we get a contract extension for Sebastian Aho, that would be great. We'll get to that too. All right. I thank you very much. By the way, brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. Did I fail to say that at the front? I did. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. You should check them out online. aluminumcompany.com. Do it. You'll thank me. Best customer service in the industry. With that said, I hope everybody's having a good summer. I'm sure I'll talk to you before, but just in case, happy July 4th. Go America. And we'll see you down the road on the Canes Corner podcast. I'm Adam. See ya.